Discover the incredible maid who stood up to a millionaire CEO and transformed his life in 30 days. Maria had long been the heart of her community in a bustling Midwestern city, a hard-working maid navigating 2 jobs to support her family back home in Mexico. Each day she rose before dawn, often with tired eyes but a hopeful heart, dreaming of a better life for her children, a life filled with opportunities she never had. She was a beacon of strength and kindness, volunteering her time to help the less fortunate, handing out what little she had with a smile that illuminated even the darkest days. One fateful morning, Maria received a new assignment to clean a luxurious penthouse owned by Mark Jenkins, a ruthless CEO whose towering empire was as impressive as it was isolating. As she polished the gleaming surfaces of his opulent home, the dazzling skyline was a backdrop that seemed to accentuate Mark's profound loneliness. Surrounded by wealth, the man had lost sight of what truly mattered. It was while adjusting the plush throw pillows that she accidentally overheard a phone call that sent her heart racing. Mark was planning to lay off loyal employees who dedicated years of their lives to his company. She felt a knot tighten in her chest. How could someone succeed at the expense of so many? This was the moment she decided to confront him, her voice steady, eyes unwavering. How can you do this to the people who helped you get here? Caught off guard, Mark looked at her, his expression a mixture of surprise and confusion. It was in that encounter, amidst the haute couture and sparkling chandeliers, that a connection was forged, a sacred space where worlds collided. As they spoke, Maria revealed the sacrifices she made for her family. Mark, in turn, opened up about his own struggles with the emptiness of his success. Days passed, with Maria returning to clean his penthouse, each visit deepening their bond. They talked more, Maria's resilience challenging Mark's prior beliefs and stirring something within him. She embodied the American spirit of determination, and in her stories he found echoes of his own humanity. But then, a storm loomed over Mark's company, a scandal that could unravel everything he'd built. Maria witnessed the community's workers rally in solidarity against the looming layoffs. Inspired, she took to the front lines to help organize a rally, igniting hope in the hearts of many. Together we can fight for our lives, she proclaimed, her voice strong against the skyscrapers. As the day of the rally approached, Mark stood, torn between loyalty to his own fears and the transformative courage Maria had shown. He watched her galvanize the community and felt a magnetic pull toward a different path. But then his board confronted him. Attending the rally could spell doom for his reputation. Before we continue, I need to let you know about something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to the system, and many people are losing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, hit that bell and mark all notifications so you don't miss the next videos. And if you can drop a like, it really helps me with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, let me know in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue. As the rally arrived, Maria stood at the forefront, resolute and radiant, rallying her community around her. Mark remained in the shadows, wrestling with his demons and hovering at the brink of a decision that could affect not just his life, but countless others. Would he step forward and support Maria or retreat to his gilded cage? The air crackled with anticipation, and the question lingered heavy on everyone's heart: could a single choice change the course of their worlds forever? The crowd surged with energy, voices blending into a powerful symphony of determination and hope. Maria's words pierced through the thick air, passionate and unwavering. We stand together. We will not be silenced. She raised her hands, her presence magnetic, igniting the spirits of every worker present. In that moment they weren't just individuals struggling to make ends meet. They were a united front, like warriors ready to rally for their rights. Mark watched from the edge of the crowd, his heart pounding. Maria's fervor brought unexpected tears to his eyes. He had spent so long locked away in his high-rise cage, believing that the world operated under cold calculations and profit margins. But here was Maria, a real force, reminding him of the warmth hiding behind the numbers of people like her, fighting for dignity. The board would never understand. They didn't see the human cost behind the spreadsheets. They didn't see these workers as anything more than assets or line items. Discomfort twisted in Mark's gut as he contemplated his next move. Could he truly ignore the outcry? The warmth radiating from Maria urged him to take a step forward, yet the icy grip of fear held him back. Suddenly, a chant erupted from the crowd, rallying together as one. Mark! 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 They had caught sight of him lingering in the shadows. A ripple of anticipation spread through the crowd, a mixture of hope and apprehension. Maria turned, her eyes locking onto his. In that gaze, an unspoken understanding flowed between them. She was calling him not just to support her cause but to rediscover the man he had buried beneath his empire. The tough exterior of a businessman shattered as he contemplated crossing the line from a bystander to an ally. Taking a deep breath, he stepped forward, plausible disbelief washing over him. Each step felt monumental, like breaking free from chains. The murmurs hushed as he reached Maria, who stood tall and unwavering. Her courageous presence seemed to light a fire within him. "I want to help," he finally managed to say. Though the words tasted foreign on his tongue, a mix of surprise and relief spread across Maria's face. "You'll stand with us?" she asked, a flicker of hope igniting in her chest. "Yes," he affirmed, his voice steadier now. I will do what I can." The crowd erupted into cheers, the sound shaking the very ground beneath Mark's polished shoes. In that moment he realized this was not just a rally. It was a reckoning for his career, his relationships, and most importantly, for the lives of those who worked for him. As Maria led him onto the stage, Mark's heart raced. Not only was he taking a stand for those affected by layoffs, but he was also embracing the part of himself he thought lost forever. Vulnerability lay ahead, but so did healing. Together they spoke to the crowd, voices united in purpose. Mark could feel the weight of his decisions shift, a transformative power pulsing through the air. But in the back of his mind, the question lingered: what would this decision truly cost him? As the rally surged with renewed energy, he felt both terror and exhilaration. It was a line drawn in the sand, and there was no going back. Would this choice lead to redemption, or would it destroy everything he had worked for? The day closed with the two of them standing side by side, both exhilarating and terrifying possibilities unfolding before them. They had taken the first step together, but the path ahead was fraught with challenges that could change everything. As Maria leaned into him, a hint of worry flashed across her face. "Mark, what if we fail?" His heart thrummed in response, thoughts racing. "Then we will fight again. Together." But deep inside, he wondered if he had the strength to face the storm brewing on the horizon. As the first drops of rain began to fall, they both sensed that this was just the beginning. Emma's voice called out, pulling them back to the present. "Together, let us rewrite the ending to this story." Little did they know that the true test of their resolve was yet to come, and it would send shockwaves through their lives. Could they really stand against the forces threatening to tear them apart? The future was uncertain, but one thing was clear: their lives would never be the same again. The rain fell softly, creating an almost rhythmic patter against the stage where Mark and Maria stood. It was a cleansing rain, the kind that hinted at renewal. Mark felt the cool droplets against his skin, and despite the chill, a warmth grew inside him. Was this what it felt like to truly step into the light? Around them, the crowd buzzed with excitement, the energy pulsing like an electric current. Maria smiled widely, and when she looked at him, her eyes shone with a mixture of hope and determination. Their bond deepened in that moment, the weight of their shared conviction making everything else fade into the background noise of the world. "Let us keep this momentum going," Maria urged, turning to the crowd with a fierce intensity. "We need to show them our strength." The crowd responded like a living organism, chanting again. Each shout was more powerful, more defiant than the last. Mark's heart raced. This wasn't just a show, it was something bigger. A movement seeking justice, a cry for the dignity they all deserved. Yet, under the cheers, anxiety gnawed at the edges of his mind. What would happen when the dust settled? When the reality of their fight came crashing down? Would the board retaliate? Would they be prepared for the fallout, not just for him, but for all the workers who dared to stand? Maria caught his eye again, sensing the turmoil that brewed behind the mask of determination he wore. "What's on your mind?" she asked softly, her voice steady, as if to remind him they were in this together. "Everything," he replied, the truth spilling out before he could hold it back. "I've spent years building this company. There were choices I made that hurt people. Can I really fight against my own decisions? Can I lead them when I'm partly responsible for their pain?" Her expression softened as she reached out, placing her hand on his arm. "You're here now, Mark. That means something." It's not about the mistakes of the past anymore. It's about changing the future. For all of us. The weight of her words sank in, and a sense of clarity washed over him like the rain soaking through his suit. He was terrified of what lay ahead, but he was equally intrigued by the possibility of redemption. What if he really could make a difference? Okay, he said, nodding, determination overtaking doubt. You're right. It's time for action. But we have to plan, strategize. I can't just rush in without a plan. Have you ever seen a storm coming? Maria challenged, a faint smile teasing her lips. You can't always predict it. Sometimes you just have to brace yourself and ride it out. Mark chuckled softly, respect flooding him for her resilience. Then brace we shall. As the rain began to lessen, he took that as a sign. Something was shifting. Almost instinctively, Mark lifted the microphone once more, his voice steady and infused with vigor. Listen up, everyone. We need to gather our stories together. We can take them to the media, show the truth of what has been happening. Let us unite our voices louder than ever. The crowd erupted, and the sound felt like a wave crashing against the shore. The fear that had clung to his heart receded, replaced by a boldness he had long thought lost. Together they would be a force to reckon with. In that moment, surrounded by people finally rising to claim their strength, Mark realized this was about more than just a job. It was about restoring dignity, forging a community. But as the rally wound down and the crowd started to disperse, doubt crept again into his mind. What if they weren't ready for what was to come? Tomorrow we meet again, Maria said, breaking into his thoughts. We strategize and prepare. Together. Together, he echoed, but the sincerity of that word felt heavier now. As the storm clouds drifted away, lighting fled into the horizon, leaving a pinkish hue behind. In that twilight glow, Mark looked at Maria and felt both hope and despair intertwine. Could they truly carry this through, or was it foolish to dream? Just then, his phone buzzed, one message from the board of directors. It read simply, "We need to talk." Nerves gripped him as he glanced at Maria. But he knew deep down that he couldn't back down now. His choice was made, but at what cost? Could they weather this storm together? The sun dipped lower, casting long shadows across the silent stage. Mark stared at his phone, the weight of the board's message pressing heavily on his chest. He felt a whirlwind of emotions, fear, anger, but mostly a flicker of determination. This was it. There was no turning back. Did you get it? Maria asked, her voice cutting through the haze of his thoughts. He nodded, the tension tightening around his jaw. We'll need to face them eventually. They won't just let this slide. Maria crossed her arms, a fierce light igniting in her eyes. Then we show them we won't back down. We don't just want this, we need it. He watched the way she stood, confident and unwavering, and it fueled his resolve. You're right. But we need to be smart about this. They'll try to intimidate us. Good, she said, a grin breaking through her intensity. Let them try. Knowing that we have a cause makes all the difference. I'm scared, he admitted. What if they come after you too? I don't want to drag anyone else into this mess. The sincerity in his voice hung in the air, a weight both comforting and suffocating. Maria reached out, capturing his hand tightly in hers. We're in this together. There's strength in numbers, remember? You're not alone. He took a steadying breath, and the rain began to drip steadily again, washing away tension. The ongoing downpour seemed to echo the swirling storm in his heart. This wasn't just about his guilt. It was about the people they were fighting for. The ones who had felt the strain of corporate greed for too long. He finally said. We stand together. But we need to have a game plan. We can't just step into a lion's den without preparing. Maria's expression shifted to one of thoughtfulness, and she released his hand. We'll draft a statement. One that highlights the culture the board has created, and the stories of those who have suffered. If we can frame it in terms of injustice, it becomes bigger than us. A sense of excitement coursed through Mark. And we'll connect with the media. It'll help us elevate our voices. Yes, we gather the stories first. Every single voice counts. They set to work, scribbling down ideas and potential allies. The rain continued its drumming, but it felt like their rhythm now. Each knock against the stage reflected their growing momentum, a collective heartbeat gathering strength. Tonight, she said brightly, let us reach out to the workers. We can't wait till tomorrow, we need to act now. Her energy was infectious. He couldn't help but smile. Let us do it. As they raced against the clock, the brightness of tomorrow felt tangible. Connections turned into promises, and every name they wrote down was a pledge of allegiance to the cause. Just as they were finishing their list, Mark's phone buzzed again. A notification breaking through their flurry of hope. He glanced down and his stomach dropped. Oh no, it's from my mother. Maria raised an eyebrow, concern flickering across her face. What does it say? It's not good. She's worried about everything that's going on. She thinks I'm making a mistake. Mark, you have to stand firm in what you believe. Don't let fear from the outside shake your conviction. He sighed, feeling the pull of loyalty tethered to guilt. He was caught between two worlds, the business he had known and the justice he was now pursuing. Maybe she's right, he whispered, though deep inside he could hear the strands of doubt quaking. No, Maria snapped, surprising him. Trust your heart. If you don't fight for what's right, what legacy will you leave? Her words pierced through his uncertainty, awakening something profound within him. Mark straightened, realization dawning. He had spent years building a life shrouded in certainty, but it was time to strip away that protective layer to embrace vulnerability, the raw side of humanity. Okay, let us move forward. We go to the meeting and face them together. Together, she echoed, a spark igniting in her eyes. In the quiet of that moment, the air thick with anticipation, they prepared for the storm ahead. But as he stepped closer to Maria, something loomed over them, unsettling like the clouds gathering on the horizon. Could he truly safeguard everything dear to him while fighting for what was right? And with that, the phone buzzed again. A message from an unknown number, the words sending chills down his spine. We know how to silence dissent. Consider your next move carefully. Mark turned to Maria, panic flaring in his chest. Was this only the beginning of a battle they hadn't anticipated? Mark felt his heart race, his pulse pounding insistently against his rib cage. The message hung ominously in the air. More than just words on a screen, it was a threat, a dark reminder of the risks they were about to take. Who would send this? Mark, this is serious, Maria said, her brow furrowing deep with concern. I don't know, he replied, his voice barely above a whisper. But we can't let fear control us. We have to stay focused. Maria nodded, but Mark could see the unease flicker in her eyes. The rain beat harder against the stage, a frantic tempo mirroring his turmoil. Let us go to the cafe. We can meet there and strategize, Maria suggested, her tone shifting toward determination. Yeah, okay. That's a good idea, he said, forcing a smile to ease their tense moment. They hurried off into the rain side by side, their phone screens lighting the path like indecisive fireflies. Each step felt heavy, weighed down with the knowledge of the storm brewing both inside and outside. When they arrived at the small cafe, it was warm and almost inviting, a contrast to the chaos outside. They shook off the rain and settled into a corner booth, the aroma of coffee wrapping around them like a comforting blanket. Mark could feel the eyes of the workers around him. Each exchange of laughter and conversation was a reminder of what they were defending. He looked around, trying to gauge their strength, their resilience. Did they have hope? Did they believe in the fight? Okay, Maria said, breaking through his thoughts, we need to be clear about our goals. Mark nodded, pulling out his notebook filled with their plans, ideas, and the stories they had collected. We gather the narratives first, right? Building a strong case. Exactly, she replied. This is about being the voice for those who feel silenced. We bring those stories to light. Then we find a way to reach out to the media. As they jotted down their thoughts, the cafe door swung open, and a familiar face caught Mark's attention. It was Evan, a colleague he had known for years, someone who had always played it safe, staying within the lines of corporate protocol. Hey Mark. Maria. Evan called, his smile wide and genuine. But it faltered as he noticed their serious demeanor. What's going on? Caught off guard, Mark exchanged a glance with Maria before deciding to be honest. We're taking a stand against some things happening at the company. Evan's eyes widened. Oh, are you sure that's wise? You know how powerful the board is. The weight of every doubt from his mother resurfaced. What if we're wrong? Mark questioned, his voice barely a whisper. No, don't think like that, Maria urged. You're doing this for a reason, for the truth. Mark's resolve began to solidify. as the passion ignited between them again. But he couldn't shake the feeling of eyes watching them, judging their courage. "I know we can do this," Mark said, his voice stronger. "We have to." Evan hesitated, glancing around as if searching for support. "Well, if you both believe in this." He paused, uncertainty lingering in the air. "I'd like to help." Mark felt a wave of emotion wash over him. "Really? You join us?" Evan shrugged. "I never thought about it until now. Maybe I just needed to be reminded of what's right." The spark of hope ignited among them. But just as quickly, a wave of doubt crashed back, threatening to extinguish that light. "Are you ready for the backlash? I mean, seriously, they have the power to destroy us," Evan cautioned. "We're not backing down," Maria asserted, her conviction echoing like a challenge. The weight of it all loomed heavy. Mark realized they were at the edge of something that could either shatter them or set them free. "Then we need to act. Tonight," he said decisively. "Let us gather everyone. We can't let fear silence us." As they spun their plans, a new notification pinged on Mark's phone. His heart dropped as he read the words, this time from a familiar name, a close friend caught in the web of corporate loyalty. "You're risking everything. Stay quiet." Mark felt a chill sweep through him. Was he strong enough to lead this fight, to withstand the storm that was brewing? With uncertainty nipping at his heels and resolve hardening in his chest, he glanced back at Maria and Evan, their faces set with determination. As they began to plot how to gather support and deliver their message, one question loomed larger than the storm outside. Were they prepared to face whatever was coming next? Mark took a deep breath, the warmth of the cafe enveloping him but doing little to ease the growing tension in his chest. He glanced between Maria and Evan, their combined determination a flicker of light in the storm they faced. They couldn't afford to hesitate, not now. "All right," he continued, his voice steady despite the heaviness. "Let us focus on rallying everyone. We need all hands on deck for this." Evan nodded, a newfound spark lighting his eyes. "Who's first on the list?" "Let us start with the supervisors. They might still have some pull with the higher-ups," Maria said, her voice filled with urgency. "We need them to understand how the board's actions affect everyone on the ground." Mark scribbled down names, the ink flowing as quickly as his racing thoughts. Each stroke felt like a promise what they were doing mattered. A sudden gust of wind rattled the cafe's door, and Mark felt a chill creep over him. If the board found out, they'd come down hard. But he shoved that thought aside, forcing the fear from his mind. It wasn't just about him anymore. They were fighting for those who felt powerless, who were tired of being overlooked. "They're scared," he said, breaking the silence. "But if we stand together," exactly, Maria interjected. "If we can show them they're not alone, we can build a movement. People need to feel they're supported. That's what they've been missing." Evan pondered, looking out the window, lost in thought. "I've heard whispers around the office. People are getting fed up. They're just waiting for someone to speak up." Mark's heart raced again, this time with hope. "Then we need to be that voice. We can't wait any longer to start. Tonight we will create a plan." After they finished setting up their strategy, the energy shifted in the cafe. Mark noticed others glancing over, some whispering, others listening intently. It was unsettling but invigorating. Their little corner of rebellion felt charged, alive with purpose. "Hey, let us get more people involved," Evan said, leaning in with a conspiratorial whisper. "What if we made a group chat? We can reach out to everyone and plan for this evening." "Good idea," Mark agreed. He smiled, feeling camaraderie surfacing, a shared commitment binding them closer. As they created the chat and shared it, Mark felt the room pulse with unspoken potential. Right then, a group of co-workers entered, their laughter losing itself in the seriousness of their conversation. Mark recognized the faces, people he had always admired for their tenacity, but had never seen stepping outside their comfort zones. "Hey, we could use some backup," Mark called out, inviting them over. When they approached, he sensed hesitance but also curiosity. "What's this about?" one of them asked, eyes flitting between the trio. Maria took the lead. "We're organizing a response to the board's decisions. It's time to stand up for what's right." Mark watched as their words sank in, the surprise morphing into intrigue. Whispers began to circulate, a ripple of momentum taking hold. "Count us in," another said boldly, with a thrill bubbling in the words. Mark felt his chest swell with pride. This was it. It was happening. Just then, he noticed a looming figure at the entrance, a tall man with a sharp suit, his presence strikingly intimidating. Mark recognized him instantly as one of the board members. The tension in the cafe shifted, conversations quieted, and all eyes darted toward the newcomer. Instinctively, Mark's heart thundered. Was he here for them? To shut them down before they even began? The man scanned the cafe, his gaze settling right on them. Mark could feel the weight of his stare, judgment and authority wrapped in one piercing look. What now? Evan whispered, his urgency returning. Mark straightened, his resolve tightening. They wouldn't back down. We stick to the plan. No matter what. But as the board member took a step closer, Mark felt uncertainty flooding through him again. What was this confrontation going to bring? Were they truly prepared for the battle ahead? With a mix of anxiety and determination swirling in his gut, Mark took a step forward, ready to demand their right to speak, to stand tall despite the looming threat. But would their courage hold against the consequences they might soon face? Mark's mind raced as he faced the board member, the air thick with dread and anticipation. He straightened his back, fighting the urge to retreat. The cafe, once a vibrant space of hope, now felt like a stage set for confrontation, the eyes of his colleagues like spotlight beams piercing through him. The man in the suit walked closer, his every step deliberate, powerful. Mark could feel the tension shift. A cold wave washed over him and he tried to hold steady. He had to be the rock for his friends and co-workers. Mr. Donovan, the board member acknowledged, his voice oozing authority. I couldn't help but overhear your little gathering. Inappropriate, don't you think? A whisper of fear lapped at the edges of Mark's determination. Inappropriate? Was it inappropriate to fight for fairness? A thought flickered. Would Mr. Donovan's presence intimidate the others, undermine the courage building in the room? But Maria stepped forward, her spirit aflame as she challenged the board member. What's inappropriate is the way the board treats us. We deserve respect and a chance to be heard. Mark felt his heart race, pride swelling in his chest. Maria's voice exuded fire and truth. Evan joined in, echoing her sentiment. We're tired of being silenced, and today we're standing up for everyone. The board member paused, a fleeting flicker of surprise crossing his face before his practiced mask returned. He smiled, but it was not a warm or friendly smile. You think this kind of rebellion will change anything? There are consequences for speaking out, kids. Mark found his voice, steadying his breathing. Let us be the judge of that. Show us you care about our input, and we won't need to rise against you. Everyone here has a right to their voice. Around them, a ripple of murmur started to rise. Co-workers shifted in their seats, some nodding, others clenching their fists in determination. Together they were a force of change, a movement slowly brewing. But as the board member's expression hardened, Mark felt his resolve waver just a touch. What if they really didn't have a chance? What if this confrontation pushed the board to retaliate? Believe me, Mark, the board member said, stepping closer, you really don't want to make this into a bigger deal than it already is. The room seemed to hold its breath. Mark exchanged glances with Maria and Evan, their eyes wide with fear but also with hope. They were strong together. They weren't going to back down now. Maybe you underestimate us, Mark replied, not breaking eye contact. This isn't just about you or me. It's about everyone in this cafe who feels overlooked. If we fall together. Suddenly, the door swung open and the cafe owner, a familiar figure with a kind smile named Laura, stepped inside. She raised an eyebrow, noticing the tension instantly. What is happening here? The board member straightened his posture, suddenly aware of the shift in power. Mark took the moment to gather strength from Laura's presence. He felt the atmosphere change again, as hope surged anew. Laura, we're discussing the importance of our jobs and how we're treated. It's time to make our voices heard. Laura looked around, gauging the expressions of everyone in the cafe. I'll back you up, she said firmly. You deserve a voice in your workplace. A wave of relief washed over the group, igniting the flicker of courage in their hearts. See, Mark said, emboldened. It's not just us. People are ready to support each other. We just needed to believe in ourselves. As murmurs of agreement filled the room, the board member's expression darkened again. He turned to Mark, his icy glare unwavering. This isn't over. You've made a mistake today. Well, Mark replied, his breath shaky but resolute. If that's the case, then we'll just have to prepare for what comes next. The air pulsed with anticipation, and Mark's heart pounded with a mix of fear and exhilaration. It was a new dawn, and they were poised on the brink of something transformative. Where would this newfound courage take them? They had ignited a spark. It was time to fan the flames. But as the board member stepped back, an all-too-familiar sense of uncertainty lingered. Was the impending backlash enough to shake their foundations? What would they become in the face of strife? Mark felt the weight of the board member's threat in the air. As the man turned to leave, each step sounded like a countdown, reminding them that their act of defiance came with a price. The tension in the cafe hung like an unspoken promise, thick and fragile. Laura stepped closer to Mark, her eyes filled with determination. We need to talk about next steps. This isn't just a fight for today. It's about our future. Mark nodded, his mind racing. You're right. If we're going to make this work, we need a solid plan, something that shows the board we won't back down. Evan chimed in, his hand gripping the table. If they think we're pushing back just for the sake of it, they'll never take us seriously. We need to show them our unity, our strength. Maria's face lit up as she spoke. Let us gather stories. Everyone here has something to say about how they've been treated. We can put together a document, a petition. Something that proves we're not just a chorus of dissenters. We're a team. Mark could feel the spark growing in the room. Each person, once hesitant, was now leaning into the conversation. There was fire behind their eyes, shared pain fueling their passion. Let us create a timeline, Laura said, her voice steady. Mark, you're the heart of this group. Lead the effort. Make sure every voice is heard. His heart raced, not from fear this time, but from a dawning realization. They were more than employees. They were a community. A family. And together, they carried stories rich with resilience. Okay, he said, palms sweating but conviction building. Let us meet tomorrow. Everyone will share their experiences. We will show them the reality of their decisions. As they began crafting their plans, murmurings of solidarity spread through the cafe. The group was no longer merely reacting. They were creating their path together. Yet, as Mark looked around, excitement surged but also an underlying current of trepidation. What would the board's next move be? They had seemed unyielding, and now it felt like a war was on the horizon. Remember, Mark said as voices began to quiet down, this is just the beginning. We need to put our hearts into this, not just our names. Everyone nodded, their resolve hardening. Cheers echoed faintly, but enough to knit a bond. Later that night, as Mark lay in bed, he stared at the ceiling, thoughts spiraling. Would they truly have the strength to follow through? What if the board retaliated more harshly than they anticipated? But then another thought surfaced. Hadn't they already taken the most important step? They were no longer invisible. They had been seen, heard, and they would be respected. Suddenly, a new courage ignited within him. He pulled out his phone to send a message to the group. Let us meet at dawn. We fight as one. The hours felt endless, but when morning light spilled into his room, Mark felt renewed. Today would define their struggle, their unity. Today was about action, not reaction. As he prepared to head out, the phone buzzed with messages from the team, excitement, determination, and also quiet fears. They all felt it. The looming chill of reprisal. Even their board ally Laura couldn't bring total comfort. Gathering his strength, Mark stepped outside. The air was brisk. The world felt charged with potential. They were standing on the precipice of something monumental, where courage and fear danced together. What if this day didn't just bring struggle but change? Mark took a deep breath. It was time to face what lay ahead. But as he approached the cafe, anxiety knotted in his gut. Would their efforts be met with support? Or would they awaken a beast they couldn't handle? Who were they really up against? The board member's icy glare lingered in his memory, and as he crossed the threshold, the most important question loomed in his mind. Would their spark of courage be enough to ignite a fire of change, or would it burn them all? Mark entered the cafe, the familiar scent of coffee swirling around him, but today it felt different. The air crackled with anticipation, charged with unspoken hopes and fears. Tables were rearranged, and the group was already forming a circle. Laura stood at the center, her demeanor commanding yet comforting. Glad you made it, Mark, she said, her smile warm but her eyes fierce. We're just about to start. Okay, everyone, Mark said, his voice steady despite the swirling emotions inside him. Today we share our stories. This is our moment to be heard. As each person took turns, their voices wove a tapestry of experiences, some heartbreaking, others empowering. Evan spoke first, his hands shaking as he recalled times he worked overtime without pay, feeling like a ghost in the office. Maria recounted the struggles of balance, juggling family and work while feeling invisible to management. Each story sparkled with vulnerability, yet also revealed the strength embedded in their shared struggles. Mark listened intently, each word resonating deep within him. These weren't just complaints, they were truths, pieces of a larger picture. With every story, the room swelled with sympathy, determination growing like vines around each individual, binding them together. Thank you for sharing, Mark said after the last story was told. We can't let this stay in this room. We need to capture these voices, make them a part of our petition. They need to see us, really see us. The group cheered and Mark could feel the pulse of hope beating in their collective chest. They were ready. Plans began to form. Graphics, quotes, testimonials, each person brought a unique idea to the table. Bonds of trust and friendship drew tighter with every laugh and every frown shared in that space. But amidst the excitement, the gnawing anxiety in Mark's stomach returned. The more united they became, the more he felt the weight of the board's impending reaction as they pieced their petition together. The atmosphere shifted when Laura slowed down, her brow furrowed. What if they don't take us seriously? She asked with a tremor in her voice. What if they retaliate? Heck, they might, Evan answered candidly. But isn't that a risk worth taking? Lives are at stake here. We're asking for basic respect. Exactly, Maria chimed in, her confidence shining. We already have nothing to lose. We're here, we show up every day, we deserve dignity. Mark nodded, feeling reassured by their courage. We can't control their reaction, but we can control how we respond. If we stand together, they'll have to listen. As they finalized their document, another wave of unease washed over him. The thought of sending it up to the board felt monumental, like surrendering a piece of themselves that they could never reclaim. Later that afternoon, with the sun dipping low outside, Mark's phone buzzed with a message from Laura. We need to talk about how to present it and prepare for what comes next. Mark stared at the glowing screen. They were headed into the unknown. Heart-pounding, he replied, let us meet later. We'll prepare for everything. They won't catch us off guard. But as he walked home, doubts crept back in, whispering fears that began to cloud his optimism. Would all of this matter? Did they have the strength and fortitude to endure whatever came next? His mind spiraled into a whirlpool of what-ifs, drowning out the hope that had lingered just moments as he stepped through the door to his apartment. A thought cut through the chaos. If they falter now after everything they've rebuilt, would it be the end of their fight? Or could it somehow be a chance for a new beginning? Tonight could change everything. But the true question was, would they emerge stronger? Or would they crumble under the pressure? The sun rose slowly over the city, its warm glow spilling into the cafe, a sanctuary now overflowing with purpose. Mark paced nervously, the faces of his friends, colleagues, and community surrounding him like a protective barrier. Excitement and tension twisted in his chest, both buoying and threatening to weigh him down. They were on the brink of something profound, an opportunity to reclaim their dignity and rewrite their collective story. Laura arrived first, her face resolute. Mark, she said, pulling him aside, are you ready? It's just us for the moment. The rest will be here any minute. He nodded, his heart racing. We've come too far to turn back. This isn't just about us anymore. It's our community's chance to be heard. As each person filed in, the atmosphere thickened with anticipation. Maria sat beside him, her presence like an anchor. We're in this together, remember? She smiled, and he felt a surge of strength at her belief in them. The room quickly filled, laughter spilling from familiar faces, but it was a nervous laughter, tinged with the weight of what was coming. They gathered around a long table, nerves humming like electricity in the air. All right, everyone, Mark said, once the last chair scraped into place. We've all shared our stories, felt the pain. Now it's time to channel that into something powerful. He spoke with urgency, his voice gathering momentum. We're going to present our petition, our united front for dignity and respect. Let us make sure the board knows this isn't just a whisper, it's a roar. Applause erupted, and the energy shifted, filling the room with a sense of solidarity. Hope blossomed in their eyes as the chatter subsided. Evan took a deep breath. If we're going to do this, let us also share a plan for how to address possible backlash. We've got to be ready for anything. Maria nodded, her dark eyes sparkling with intensity. They want to intimidate us. But remember, there's strength in numbers. We stand together. If one falls, we all catch each other. Mark felt a wave of emotion ripple through him. Right. We're stronger than any threat they can throw at us. Yet, even as he spoke, the cold shadow of uncertainty loomed over him. What repercussions awaited them? The team quickly divided into small groups. They drafted key points for their presentation. Impacts on employee morale, stories of those who risked everything, and a firm demand for recognition. Each little victory a piece of their petition. A shared story breathed life into their resolve. Hours slipped by as they crafted the final document. Finally, it was time to take action. Mark stepped forward, holding the crisp papers tightly in his hands. Is everyone ready? He asked, the words spilling from him with more determination than he expected. Born ready, Maria replied, her spirit illuminating the room as they stepped out into the sunlight. Each heartbeat felt like a countdown. They arrived at corporate headquarters, the imposing structure looming above them, each glass panel polished to perfection. But today it was just another building. It would not intimidate them. With a deep breath, Mark pushed open the door and they filed in, ready to face their future. The receptionist eyed them warily, but Mark waved his hand dismissively. We're here to speak with the board. As they waited, the air vibrated with potential. Voices echoed in the foyer. Restless opposing factions one moment, then silence cloaked them in the next. Finally, a stern man in a suit approached. The board will see you now. Follow me. The journey through the sleek hallways felt surreal, like they were stepping into the lion's den. Yet, Mark noticed the confidence building within him, fortifying his resolve. They were not just bodies filling a room, they were a movement. Entering the boardroom, Mark introduced everyone simply as my team. The board members quickly dismissed their presence, looking at them as intruders. Yet, Mark squared his shoulders, lifting his chin. We're here because our voices matter. We've gathered our stories and we demand to be heard. He laid out the petition, explained each piece of it with clarity and conviction. Maria and Evan echoed his sentiments, emphasizing teamwork and collective strength. Each story painted a rich tapestry of their reality, and the board members shifted uncomfortably, their expressions morphing to show flickers of recognition, even guilt. When Mark finished, there was a weighty silence. He sensed tension ripple through the members' ranks. While one of the executives began slowly, "This is quite unprecedented." Mark took a soft, steady breath. "We're ready for any consequences. But we won't be silenced anymore." As murmurs among the board escalated, Mark felt a newfound resolve. This was their moment, their light shining fiercely amidst possible darkness. With the weight of uncertainty still lingering, Mark stepped forward. "We need to talk about how we can move forward. We want to work together." One by one, the board members shifted their gaze to one another, contemplating. The energy shifted again, the air crackling with potential. For the first time in a long time, Mark believed that their fight was not in vain. They had stepped out of darkness into the light. Together. As the meeting concluded, the board agreed to dialogue with them. A small victory, but a victory nonetheless. When they filed out, adrenaline surged. Jubilant laughter sweetened by relief and triumph spilled into the hallway. They had faced the giants and emerged intact. The world outside flooded with sunshine, each ray a promise. "We did it," Maria exclaimed, her eyes shimmering. As Mark glanced around at his team, there was no hiding the tears of joy in their eyes, no more chains of silence. "This is just the beginning," he declared, voice ringing strong. A harmonious echo of hope. "Together we'll create meaningful change, not just for us but for everyone." And at that moment, surrounded by support and renewed purpose, the future felt limitless. Mark turned to face the horizon. There were storms yet to weather, but they were no longer alone. They had each other, and together they were ready to face whatever came next. Now, dear friends, this is the moment to show your support. You need to subscribe immediately to the channel to not miss the next exclusive stories. Leave a like now to feed the algorithm and help us grow. Don't wait not even one more second. Comment your reactions and feelings about this ending. And share instantly this video with at least 5 friends who need to see this transformation. You are part of something incredible.